Hello, and welcome everyone to the God of War Ragnarok review. This is Real Gamer. And first off, I must tell you that there may be some spoilers in this review, so if that's something you want to avoid, I suggest you guys leave now. Okay, so first off, I'd like to say that this is my very first review, also the first time using any of the editing software. So as I continue to do so, my reviews will evolve as well. So I know that right now this is an extremely bare bones review, but it'll get there. I'd like to thank those of you that stopped in during my live streams and chatted with me on my journey. Much appreciated. All right, so the way that I'm going to do my reviews is a score out of 10 for each area of the game, including story, combat, characters, world, and performance. I will then average them to get a final score. Then I will give some personal thoughts at the end. Okay, so now that we've got that out of the way, let's dive into God of War Ragnarok. So, the first section is story. This is the conclusion of the epic story that started in 2018 God of War. The story centers around Kratos and his son Atreus, aka Loki. This at its center is the story about a father and his son, with a secondary story that drives the game, revolving around Ragnarok, the catastrophic end to Norse mythology. Though the developer Sony Santa Monica has put their own spin on it. Some time has passed since we last visited them in the first game. Atreus and Kratos now look 5 to 10 years older. Signs of age are now starting to show on Kratos, not just visually, but physically as well. Atreus, on the other hand, is maturing and growing in all aspects. Together they set out to see if they can find a way to stop Ragnarok. Now, first Kratos and Atreus set out to find Tyr, the Norse god of war. They find him and bring him back to Sindri's house, a dwelling on its own plane directly connected to Yggdrasil, the world's tree. From here you come and go as you battle the toughest dregs that the Nine Realms has to offer. Some will look familiar, others will have a brand new experience. Eventually, it becomes a tit for tat with Odin, who's weaseling his way into Atreus' life, confusing and befriending him. Odin is on his own quest of sorts, looking for the meaning of everything. Only thing is, Atreus is the key to understanding it all. So convinced of this Odin is that he sets Atreus up in Asgard and sends him out to find pieces of a mask. Atreus agrees, finds them all, but before he gives it to Odin, he stops back at Sindri's house to consult with the group. Then the shoe drops. We find out that Tyr was really Odin, who just copied his likeness to infiltrate the group. Now fearing that Odin knows all of their plans, Kratos and Atreus resort to the one option they have left, Surtur. They venture to Muspelheim, speak to Surtur, who agrees to help them and just to call when the time is right. Kratos and Atreus head back to Sindri's to prepare for Ragnarok. Now in the midst of this all, Brock dies, Midgardians are killed, Thor dies, Odin gets beamed into a marble, Asgard is destroyed, but the rest of the 8 realms are saved and free from the oppression of Odin. For all this, I give the story a 9.8 out of 10. On to combat now. Combat in this game is even more cohesive than in the first one. They added a new main weapon called the Draupnir Spear. Immediately, it fit in right away with Kratos' arsenal. And once upgraded, it was a beast of a weapon. During fights, seamlessly switching from one weapon to another, cycling through your specials for each was an amazing feeling. And one in video games I won't forget. A new type of rage mode was added. It's called Valor, which refills health instead of raging out. This is what I use for most of the game, and it worked pretty well for me. I've played many games in my life, but there are few that can compare to the feeling you get when controlling Kratos in a fight. Atreus still uses a bow and arrow, but also has a summon function that adds to combat. All of this together makes for a 10 out of 10 score. On to characters. The characters that Sony Santa Monica brings to life in this revived 2-part series are at the top of the industry. They use mocap to get a more accurate way to animate their characters. This is state of the art, and it shows. There are a few games that breathe life into characters the way that this one does. The moments of joy you feel, as well as the moments of sadness, by the end of the game, you're truly invested in them, and you actually care about what's happening to them. I can't tell you how many games that I skip dialogue just to get on with the game. Not in this game. You're waiting until the next big moment to see where it brings us next. Kratos learns how to be a father, Atreus becomes a man, Freya learns to forgive, and Sindri snaps. But each of those carry weight, meaning, and that's why characters get a 10 out of 10. World. The way that Sony Santa Monica thought out how to cohesively materialize Norse mythology into an actual place that interacts and lets you travel from one world to the next is second to none. And it's not just travel for travel's sake, it makes sense. The way they transitioned everything from 2018 to this new version of Ragnarok having its effects was perfectly realized. The way they handled collectibles, point of interest, mission markers was great. And also keeping track of what you're missing in each area is also very seamless. Very few times I didn't understand what I was missing. The worlds that they created feel like they've been lived in and are currently occupied in some areas. The puzzles in this game are fun, not exhausting, and also the puzzles usually are just hidden in the world. They are the world, which had to take some time to create. One thing I would have liked is a bit more to do in a couple of the worlds, as they were really pretty quick stops and not much to do in them. But for these reasons, I give World 9.6. On to performance. This game offers 30 quality, 60 performance, 40 quality high frame rate, 120 performance high frame rate, though an HDMI 2.1 screen is required for 40 and 120 modes. The resolution at 30 FPS is a native 4K or 3840 by 2160. At 60 FPS, a dynamic resolution is deployed that varies from 1440p to 2160p. At 40 FPS, dynamic resolution is also used and it varies from 1800p to 2160p. And in the 120 FPS mode, it runs at 1440p. Visually, the game looks more crisp and sharp, and assets have more detail than in the previous game. Compared to other games that tout the AAA status, I never experienced a single crash, freeze, or screen tearing my whole playthrough, and I played at 120. And for this reason, performance gets 10 out of 10. Alright, so after averaging out the scores, God of War Ragnarok gets a 9.88 out of 10. A great score and an amazing game for my first review. Now on to some of my personal thoughts. Ever since I finished God of War 2018, which I have in my top 5 games of all time, I've been thinking, wondering, and talking about just what will happen in this game. And boy, I sure wasn't disappointed. It is everything I expected and more, which is how a game should be. This series makes you question actual things in your life, makes you think about real world issues. They may be hidden in a parable from a mirror or a solo trap that you need to help, but they're there. Anytime a game can cross those boundaries, you have my attention. This is the last game in the Revival series, though I hope Santa Monica and Sony decide to take this to some other mythology. Who knows? Well, that's it for me. I hope you guys liked my God of War Ragnarok review. If you've beaten the game or would like to share your thoughts on my review, please feel free to write them below. I'd love to hear. Until next time, please remember to like, share, and sub, and I'll see you guys in the next one.